Hi, good day everyone. It's me again, Miss Maita C. Encarnacion, your subject teacher for English for academic and professional purposes. Okay, before we move on to discuss the lessons of our Unit 2, we are going to have a review first on what lesson did we talk about on our Unit 1. Now, what is our Unit 1 gani? It's the nature of academic text. For our lesson 1, we talked about the structure of academic text. For our lesson 2, we talked about academic texts across disciplines. And for the lesson 3, we talked about reading a text critically or critical reading. Okay? So now, let's move on to our Unit 2. We are going to talk about thesis statements and outlining. For our lesson 1, we are going to talk about what is a thesis statement. Okay, for our papers to be convincing, we must first define our stand concretely. How do we write a strong thesis statement? Okay, so for our lesson, we have our learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, you students should be able to do the following. First, identify the characteristics of a thesis statement. In the next one, you will be able to practice writing a strong thesis statement. Okay, for the essential questions that should be answered on at the end of our lesson, what should be considered when formulating a working thesis statement, and why must a thesis statement be open to debate? Okay, so let's move on. Now, what is a thesis statement? A thesis statement, in your introductory paragraph of your paper, you should state your stand on an issue or question in one sentence. Now, this sentence is called a thesis statement. Your main idea will dictate the flow of the rest of your paper. Now, what is a thesis statement? It's a brief articulation or a brief sentence of your paper's central argument and purpose. Okay? Now, you might hear it being referred to as simply the word thesis or thesis. Okay? Now, what is the characteristics of a thesis statement? It shows your stand on an issue, on what side are you on, okay? If you are rejecting a certain topic or a certain stand, or you are approving to it, okay? Next, it answers a question. Next, it makes a claim that can be disputed. When we say claim, it's a sort of belief or assumption on a specific topic or major concept. Next, it is a single sentence at the start of your paper that presents your argument to the readers. Okay, what are the key words that signal a need for a thesis statement? Analyze. These are some of the words lang ha. Analyze, interpret, compare and contrast, show causes and effects, or choosing a side or stand on an issue. Okay. Okay, now let's move on in how to write a thesis statement. Okay, formulating a thesis is not the first thing you do upon receiving an assignment or task. A thesis must be the result of a long process of thinking and planning. So, in order for you to come up with a thesis statement, you need to brainstorm muna, ha? Okay, now before you can develop any kind of thesis, you must first do your research on the topic, okay? Now, for you to be able to tell the reader how you will interpret the significance of the subject matter under discussion on your paper. Okay? So now, please remember, students, that when you write a thesis statement, it should have a persuasive tone, okay? It should be clear on where you stand on the topic at hand. Okay. Now, next, you have to look for information and evidence, then organize them based on the points they make. Look for possible relationships between pieces of information and analyze and find significance of these relationships. Now, Please remember that a thesis statement is usually a single sentence near the beginning of your paper. Now, a thesis statement is most often found at the end of your first paragraph. Remember that a thesis statement is found at the start of your paper. So it means it's in the contents of the first paragraph of the paper. Okay? Now, that a sentence that presents the argument or your argument to the reader. Okay? Now, for the rest of the paper, which is the body of the essay, it will gather and organize the evidence that will persuade of the logic of your interpretation on the concept or the topic that you chose to discuss. Okay, afterward, you will most likely be able to come up with a working thesis that has a basic main idea. It's okay if your thesis and arguments might need adjustments along the way, okay? You can edit and revise your paper if if you found or you find mistakes, no? Okay, what matters is that you can find substantial evidence to support a more concrete thesis even if you had to adjust from time to time, okay? So it's very important in making a claim or making a belief or assumption, you have to research further or thorough first, okay? Now, let's move on with the examples. Given the following question, should the SOGI bill be passed in the Philippines? For those of you who do not know about the SOGI bill, it's all about an act prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity expression. That's the SOGI bill, okay? Now, on our example, which do have a simple thesis statement and an improved thesis statement. Let's observe first. The simple thesis statement is only, I believe that SOGI bill should be passed. Okay, that's a very simple statement, but it lacks specific information and details on why the author or why the writer is approving on the statement. Okay? Now, let's observe or let's see the improved thesis statement. I believe the SOGI bill should be passed because it ensures that all basic human rights are available to all people regardless of sexual orientation or gender expression. Okay, do you think that the characteristics of a thesis statement is shown on our improved thesis statement? Okay, diba? Yes, okay. Why? Because first characteristic of a thesis statement is it shows a stand on an issue. Asa ang stand dira? Okay? The author believes that the SOGI bill should be passed. That's the stand. He or she is showing approval of the SOGI bill. It makes a claim that can be disputed. It can be argued or it's open for argument, diba? And it answers a question why the author, he or she, is showing approval on the SOGI bill. Okay? Let's move on. Okay, now, let's see tips on writing a thesis statement. Make your thesis statement as specific as possible by doing the following: expressing just one major idea, naming the topic and asserting something specific about it, and stating your position or opinion about the issue. Okay? Concentrate on one major idea and then elaborate on the specific details about that idea or about that topic. And then you state your position, whether you approve or disapprove, whether you reject or not reject the certain issue. Oh, okay. Next, example number 2. Okay, if you're given an assignment to analyze the state of traffic in Quezon City or in Davao City and propose a possible solution for it. Now, as a writer, you have to do an initial research first. You have to research talaga before making a claim or before presenting suggestions, before presenting possible solutions. Okay, now, you have to make observations on the road conditions on Quezon City. Okay? Now, the possible statement for this one is a possible solution to the traffic situation in Quezon City is to set up carpooling systems in most densely populated communities outside large company buildings. Okay. Now, it's okay, in the example of our possible thesis statement, do we observe some characteristics of our good thesis statement ba? Okay, let's, ano ba? Himay-himayin muna natin, no? Okay, first, does it show a stand on a certain issue? Yes ba? Yes? Okay, because it presents or claiming possible solutions that setting up carpooling systems is definitely the possible solution for the traffic situation. It's making or it's suggesting that it is better to have carpooling systems. Okay, are you familiar with carpooling system? Okay, when we say carpooling system, para kuan lang tama, hindi lang tama confuse on the term. Okay, when we say carpooling, it's an arrangement between 2 or more people to make a regular journey in a single car. Diba on our taxis manggod, we only have 1 passenger per location, no? So, when we say in carpooling, 2 people will be on the same car, which headed or to the same location. If pwede lang naman, no? Okay. Now, does the details presented in a single sentence? Okay, very good. Is it arguable to another person? Can it be refused to, can it be declined? Can it be rejected? Or can it have possible or other suggested solutions? Yes, okay, very good. Okay, now remember, make use of the thesis statement to take a stance on an issue that you can support with facts and reasons. Okay, na. When you take a stance, you believe what you say. Okay? Okay, now, let's have the tips in writing strong thesis statements. It is always a good idea to consult with your instructor regarding your thesis statements in order to get some feedback. You can ask me if you are going to make thesis statements in our activities or assignments. If lisod na, no? Okay, it is also possible to do your own evaluation so that you yourself can fine-tune the thesis statement you have written. Now, as a writer, students, we prepare our draft before finalizing it or before passing it, okay? So we have a chance in reviewing our work before finalizing it, okay? Next, okay. there are questions, certain questions, in order for us to write strong thesis statements, no? We should be able to answer these questions in order for us to properly write, okay, and correctly state our claims, okay? Let's start with our first question. Am I answering the question, or are you answering the question of your issue? Okay, you have to review the question prompt and your thesis statement. Have I taken a position that can possibly be disputed by others? Now, your thesis has to be persuasive and yet open to opposition. It must not simply be stating facts. This is what I'm talking about when we say, or when I say, your issue should be, or your statement should be open to an argument. Okay, is my thesis statement specific enough? Okay, as writers, you have to avoid using vague words such as good or successful, and you have to really try to be more specific. Okay, now, does my thesis statement pass the so what test? If a reader looks at your thesis statement and asks, so what? Then you might need to make some clarifications clarifications, provide a deeper relationship, and connect to a more relevant issue. Okay, so this one, as a writer, you have to be clear with your purpose. Okay? So that, sa thesis statement pa lang, sa first paragraph pa lang, nag-grasp na ni reader yung point nyo. Okay? Next, does the rest of my essay specifically and concretely support my thesis statement? Now, you may sometimes have to modify or change your thesis statement during the process of writing in order to reflect any newfound knowledge. Next, does my thesis statement pass the how and why test? If your thesis statement is still too open-ended, add a supporting statement that will clarify your position and strengthen your stance. Okay, when we say open-ended class, unsa kinang open-ended questions or open-ended statements? These are answerable by yes. These are not answerable by yes or no, and cannot be argued that if you are clearly, or it cannot be explained or cannot be stated that if you are really disagreeing or agreeing on a specific issue or a specific topic or a specific discussion that you aim to convey on your readers and your target audience. No? Okay, remember, a good thesis statement is supported with facts and achieved through hours of research. Creating an initial statement and developing it to be more specific is an excellent way to start your research. No? So, balik-balik to no. You have to research thoroughly, okay, before you can provide a very clear and very specific thesis statement. Let's talk about another example. Given the following question, are the use of metal straws instead of plastic straws helpful in saving the environment? Now, if you write a thesis statement based on stock knowledge or only your previous knowledge without initial or thorough research, you might be inclined to write using metal straws instead of plastic straws is an effective way to reduce the amount of waste in the country. Diba? It's a very simple thesis statement. Why? Because it lacks specific details or elaborate details on your claims on the stand. Okay. on your stand. Okay, now remember that it is a thesis statement with a clear stand. However, remember to avoid vague words such as effective. Be more concrete with your stand. Why? Why is it very effective? No? Now, research why it is effective and add it to your thesis statement. A brief articulation lang on your stand on the issue or topic. Then, during your research, you could find evidence that shows your initial working thesis should be modified or changed. Now, you can still change your thesis to be more concrete and also more supported by the evidence you have found. Okay, now, this is the improved thesis statement. Unsa ganitong simple na thesis statement? Okay, using metal straws instead of plastic straws is an effective way to reduce the amount of waste in the country. Now, let's read the improved thesis statement. Metal straws are a band-aid solution to the problem of global warming because in a mass producing metal straws for people to use, large companies continue to emit dangerous amount of carbon dioxide in the environment. O, diba? It has elaborate details and additional information on your stand or your claim. Okay. Next, in your research, you have found a more significant issue to connect to the use of metal straws and have found convincing evidence on it, so you have shifted the direction of your thesis statement. Now, you have also made your thesis statement more specific and you have made your stance more clearer in the process or clearer in the process. O, di ba? Because in the first thesis statement, we can only see that the author is using metal straws as using metal straws is an effective way daw instead of using plastic straws. Diba? Very vague. Because it doesn't have specific details. Now, when the writer had a thorough investigation or a thorough research on about using metal straws, he found out that no, be, uh, band-aid metal straws are a band-aid solution to the problem. When we say band-aid solution to the problem, it's only a temporary solution because he or she that the writer knows now that in mass producing metal straws, large companies continue to emit dangerous amounts of carbon dioxide in the environment, which makes sense, no? Okay. Okay, let's move on to our example number 2. As you can see, I have my dog right here. No? But let's continue. Okay. So, next, it is important to take note that you should avoid using jargon or language that is too specific to the topic or discipline, as this will make it unclear for your readers. When we say jargon or language, these are words or terms that are very specific to a certain profession or a certain type of people, no? Which only them can understand or made for them to understand. Okay. Now, for example, let's have this sentence. Can you read? Quarantine and social distancing are effective in fighting COVID-19 because they flatten the curve. Flatten the curve? Do we understand, as a regular or common people in reading this, can we understand, no, the statement in simply reading? Oh, what's flatten the curve? For me, I can't understand if I'm an ordinary person, no? Let's see the next slide. Okay. While the thesis statement makes a clear stand, its reasoning could be unclear to readers who are not familiar with the term flattening the curve. What's flattening the curve? If I'm an ordinary person to read this on a newspaper or a post on a website, I cannot, even me cannot understand, no? Even I couldn't understand. I'm sorry. Okay, now, a better thesis statement would be quarantine and social distancing are effective in fighting COVID-19 because they slow down the rate at which people get infected with the virus. Oh, that very simple words that is used and very common to other people, we can understand that, no? Flattening the curve, it's very specific to the types of individuals or type of population to uh, be used. Okay. Now, the jargon used earlier is replaced with a much clearer statement that can be backed up by data and also disputed or can be also argued. Now, okay. Technical language and jargon can be used in the different parts of the paper as long as they are relevant and explained to the readers or further or simply explained to the readers. Avoid using them in test statements because they will confuse the readers as to what your main idea is or what your point is or what the purpose of your paper is. Okay? Avoid using jargons, no? Or terms that are very specific on the type or on a type of a population. No? That's the one. Okay. It can also make the thesis statement too lengthy and therefore harder to understand. Okay, read the thesis statement on the next slide. Then, based on the topic being discussed in the thesis statement, strengthen the thesis statement and write an introductory paragraph based on your preliminary research. Okay, now, this activity, now you have to pass this activity on our essay assignment. Okay, so you really have to finish this video. Okay, plastic waste thrown in large bodies of water is bad for the environment. You have to, based on the topic being discussed in the thesis statement, strengthen the thesis statement, write an introductory paragraph based on your preliminary research. Okay, good luck, students. Okay, questions. What does it mean when your thesis statement is a working thesis? Oh, I'm sorry. Now, these questions are required to be answered on your essay assignment. Okay. Now, first question, what does it mean when your thesis statement is a working thesis? Second, what should your thesis statement respond to in order for it to be more effective? And what can you do if in the middle of writing your research paper or your paper, you realize that the data you are using is beginning to contradict your initial statement? Okay? You have to do these activities and pass them as your essay assignment this week. Okay. Now, to sum up, the thesis statement is a single sentence usually found in the introductory paragraph of a paper that states the main idea and position of the writer. The thesis statement is a product of a long thinking and researching process. Consultation and self-evaluation are important in order to develop a stronger thesis statement. Okay, these are our references. And that would be our first lesson on our Unit 2. God bless us all. Goodbye, students. See you on Lesson 2.